Hi, and welcome to another episode here of Piano TV. So today what we're going to do is a tutorial of Mozart. It's his Minuet in F major, K2, and we're going to dissect it a little bit, get into some of the theory, and actually we're going to smush together a bunch of concepts from previous videos. So in the description bar below, there's going to be a ton of links that if you're a little bit lost on any of the points, they're all going to be below so you can kind of get caught up on everything. And just for reference, this is a grade 1 level piece, so if you're a relative beginner, you should be able to attempt this. Although this is directly from the RCM syllabus for grade 1, I actually think it's like a pretty hard one for the level. So anyway, let's get started. A lot of the music that Mozart wrote is pretty advanced in difficulty, but luckily he wrote lots of music when he was a kid, so we do have some easier pieces to draw from as well. So this piece was written when Mozart was 6 years old, but before you go and get too excited, his father probably wrote it down for him and maybe made a few tweaks because he was 6, but still it's pretty impressive. So this was composed in 1762, just to give you a little bit of a timeline, and it would have been written on the harpsichord. So this piece is going to have still a pretty Baroque flair to it, even though Mozart is technically a classical composer. You're going to notice that in the keyboard parts. It's very kind of I don't want to say choppy, but it's a lot less flowy than his music gets in the future. This piece is from a collection of music called Notebook for Nannerl. Nannerl was Mozart's sister and their father put it together, so if you like this piece, you might like that collection and want to check it out. The next thing I want to quickly talk about with Mozart's minuet that we're going to do here is what a minuet actually is. So minuets have a lot in common, just across the board. It doesn't matter who composed them because it's a dance style. So I did a whole video about this a while ago, and I'll leave that linked here on the screen if you want to check that out, if you've forgotten or if you haven't looked at that yet. But the least you need to know for this video is a minuet has 3 pretty significant characteristics that you'll see from one minuet to the other. One of them is the time signature, usually going to be 3/4 or some iteration of 3. It's going to be not slow, but generally a moderate tempo, definitely not fast. They're not mellow, but they're pretty temperate. And then number 3, minuets tend to have really simple rhythms, basic and easy, with kind of a light texture and a light character. They're not solemn or heavy or somber or anything like that. So we're gonna hop to the keyboard and play that. I'm gonna play it for you and you can see how it goes and see if you can find any of those minuet characteristics when I play. And then we'll talk about the piece. So motifs. We haven't talked about motifs before on this channel, but I think now is as good as any time to start. So just so I don't completely butcher the definition, I'm just going to tell you the gist of what Wikipedia says. And it tells us that a motif is a short musical idea, a recurring figure, a musical fragment that is characteristic of a composition. So to bring that down to earth for you, I wanted to look at the super famous motif in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, really minor sounding intense piece. You got the fortissimo. But basically what the motif is this little 3/8 note and a half note figure that's repeated over and over. If I scroll down throughout the first page of this symphony, you can see that pattern over and over. So that would be like a rhythmic motif. Now, in the piece we're doing today, there is also a rhythmic motif. It's not as intense or dramatic, but it's still there. So if you look at this, we have a pattern of 2/8 notes and 2 quarter notes. 2/8, 2 quarter, 2/8, 2 quarter. It kind of happens again. I can scroll down. Basically, the entire song is built on that rhythmic pattern. And the notes change, and sometimes the direction changes, but generally it's going up and then down, up and then down. It kind of has this I don't know, triangle shape, I guess. So the Appogiaturas, I'll just show you the first one on the first line. So you can hear when the F and the E, kind of like we said, when they go against each other, sounds pretty rough, hey? But then when it resolves to the F, it's like you created a little extra tension to get a little bit of a better payoff when you return to the F. So just to show you, like just for fun, I want to show you what it would sound like without the Appogiatura. It sounds very nice and very pretty, but without the Appogiatura, it just adds like that little something something, a little bit of drama. The next thing I want to take a look at is song format. Since minuets are generally really neat and tidy and symmetrical, the format is usually pretty easy to find. But I want you to think about this for a moment, and I'll scroll down so you can kind of see it all. Does this piece look like it's in binary form or rounded binary? And if this isn't making sense to you and you don't know what I'm talking about, again, I'll link everything below. We've done a video on binary form. So binary and rounded binary, well, binary means two. So it's a two-part song if you have binary form. And usually we mark those parts with A and B. Rounded binary, the difference with that is that instead of ending on the B section, you return to the A section. So our A section, very beginning of the song, da-da-da-dum, this little pattern right here. And the B section is super easy to find, because they're usually around the repeats. That's kind of a clear indicator. But it also, this is where you have a key change and all the notes are a little bit different. And if I keep scrolling down, look at what we got again. The same notes from the beginning, the F, A, C, C. So this would be rounded binary. So now it is time to talk about cadences. And we're going to get pretty in depth with this. So if you don't know what a cadence is, you should definitely, I'm going to even link this on the screen and below, just so you can get caught up with that, because I don't want you to get lost. And if you don't know what's going on with cadences, you might kind of get lost here. So just a little heads up. So basically cadences, for a refresher, they're music sentence enders. They're like periods or commas. They usually come at the end of a phrase. And there's no like clear phrase markings in this song, but you can kind of tell that like a musical sentence in this song is one line, because that's where you have your cadences. So right here, this would be like maybe a period. So this is like your sentence. And then over here, this is like your sentence. And then maybe there's a comma over there. All right. So basically cadences are like punctuation. It's really common in minuets for cadences to happen every 4 bars, because minuets are generally pretty simple and very symmetrical. So that's just kind of a little tip. All right. So this first cadence, let's figure out what this is. So we are in the key of F major. And I know that for 2 reasons. I'm looking at the key signature right here. There's a B flat. And also the title of the song, Minuet in F major, that kind of gives it away. So if you look at right here, we have an F major chord being outlined. So I'm going to mark this with Roman numeral 1 for F. All right. And then right prior to it, we have C and E, which is forming a C major harmony. So right here, which C, if you're in the key of F, F, G, A, B, C, that's 5 notes away. So we're marking this with Roman numeral for 5, V to 1. That is a perfect cadence. And it is super, super common for pieces to start with a perfect cadence, like right at the beginning, because what it does is it really establishes that key in your ear. So you're like, so you definitely hear that, yes, this is in the key of F. Even if you're a casual listener and you don't know that it's in the key of F, it kind of just like makes that tonality really, really obvious, even if you don't know what you're listening for. I hope that made sense. And if we scroll down to the very bottom of this song, the very end, we'll see the exact same cadence, the perfect cadence going from 5 to 1. And again, this is basically the most common way to end a piece, because it just really establishes a sense of finality. So if you ended with like an imperfect cadence where you go from 1 to V, it wouldn't sound like the end. It would sound like a comma, like there's more to come. So this perfect cadence really gives us a sense of like, yep, it's all done. You can wrap it up now. So speaking of imperfect cadences, if you look on the next line, F and A, this is our first, like our F chord, and then C, which is our V chord, you can see it's reversed. I to V, that's a imperfect cadence, and this does sound like a musical comma. It sounds incomplete, like there's more coming, which there is. When you're in binary form, especially with simple dances like the minuet, you're generally going to go through a key change somewhere around the B section, which is right here. And we can kind of tell like something different's going on here, because you have a sharp and a flat and all that weird stuff. So I'm going to jump ahead to the next cadence, which it looks like this is G minor. It looks like we're landing on G minor. I know it's G minor, not major, because of the B flat in the key signature. And if we look at the chord directly preceding it, we have D and F sharp. That would be a D major chord. So this, to me, is a perfect cadence, because it sounds like we've modulated to the key of G minor, And I don't want to get like too much into this. This is a pretty common thing with binary form, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it then. But if you're in the key of G minor, D major is 5 notes away. So this is a 5-to-1 cadence right here. So this is a perfect cadence, just in a different key. And when you hear it too, it does have like a sense of finality to it. And then if you keep going forward, you notice it goes back to our original key, the key of F. We have our perfect cadence here again, but this time it's actually in the key of F. Now this is my favorite one over here because, I don't know, I just think deceptive cadences are cool. I was going to try to make you figure it out what it is, but I'm not just going to like sit here and have a 30-second pause. So we'll just talk about what a deceptive cadence is. So we're starting with the C chord, which is our 5, but instead of resolving like a perfect cadence and going to the 1, it's being deceptive, hence the name deceptive cadence. So you are going to a D minor chord here. And if you're in the key of F, this is getting kind of messy. I'm just looking for a blank space. If you're in the key of F and this is your F scale, D is the 6th note. So we write the Roman numeral VI for 6. And I'm writing it in lowercase just to indicate that it's a minor chord. So this right here is our deceptive cadence. We think it's going to have like a happy ending, but all of a sudden it sounds really sad for a second. So those are kind of fun. Okay, so let's take a look at our cadences then. So we have the perfect cadence, which appears a few times in the song. So we're going from C. So that's like a C major chord to an F major chord, which gives it a very resolved feeling, which is why you have it at the very beginning and the very end, like we already talked about. And then on the second line, we reverse everything. We have an F chord to a C chord, which is the opposite. It's an imperfect cadence. It's all reversed, and it makes it sound like a comma, like there's more song to come. And then later down the line, we have another perfect cadence, but this time we're in a different key. We're moving from D major to G minor, which does give you that sense of resolution, but it's completely, like, it's a lot darker and it's a little bit different. It's like a twist of the piece. And then we go back to our happy perfect cadence. And then my favorite one, like I already mentioned, is later on in the song when you're hearing this happy little melody. And it's just all of a sudden out of nowhere, you got this little deceptive cadence. So if I were to play that in chords, you're going from a C chord to a D minor chord, because your ear wants you to resolve to that F because it just sounds natural. But when we go like this to the D minor, it takes us a little bit off guard. So I like how, 6-year-old Mozart / his dad added all those little like fun twists to make it not just like any old boring song. One thing that's super important in dance music is really careful articulation. So what I mean by that is by following the markings on the page really carefully. And I mean, there aren't any staccatos or accents or anything in this piece, but you need to pay special attention to what's not there. Like, you don't want to, for example, invent a slur when there is no slur. So this is what I hear a lot of the time. I'm hearing like a slur from the bar line. So I'm going beat 1, 2, 3, 1, where beat 3 and 1 are connected. And that's just like, I mean, I don't want to be over dramatic, but please do not slur beat 3 to beat 1, because it kind of ruins that, like, that dance feeling. We really want to feel the 2 downbeats. So da 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 da. So those 2 downbeats need to be detached and crisp, because that's, if you were dancing to this song, I mean, you're not going to probably, but if you were, those 2 beats would drive your movements. So we need to hear them detached. If they're slurred, you kind of lose that flow a little bit. So pay very, very close attention that you're not like slurring notes that shouldn't be slurred. Really, it's a matter of finger discipline, because usually slurs played by accident is just because, your fingers are being lazy or whatever. So pay attention. One more quick piece of advice I have for you for this tune is the fingering. So this sheet music, which is linked below, that we're using doesn't have any finger number markings in it. So what I usually do in situations like this is I'll manually mark in the fingers, because it's important to keep it consistent. You don't want to play it a different way every time you pick up the page. So what I usually do for fingering for this song is I do, for the beginning of these 8th note patterns, I start with finger number 3. I think almost all of the times, probably, like, you wouldn't start with finger 3 here, obviously, because it's moving upward. But anytime you have this, like, da-da-da-da pattern, I would use finger number 3. And yeah, you can kind of do what you feel is the most comfortable for you and figure it out like that. But that's just my suggestion. But yeah, definitely write in some finger numbers if you can. And that is all for today's video. So hop to it. Go have fun. I have the sheet music linked below. As always, if you want to print it off or load it up on your tablet or whatever you want to do, the PDF is there. And all of the little theory concepts and stuff that we talked about, like I mentioned already, is all linked below, so you can follow the links if there's anything like you're a little bit fuzzy on. Thanks again for watching. Send it a like if you enjoyed it, and I will catch you next time. One more quick piece whoops.